reality of e-work papers. Computer-assisted audit tools and techniques. When I use a computer-assisted audit tool, I am using it within the computer-assisted audit technique. So, generalized audit software, such as ACL, for example, is used to determine monetary amount of checks written to creditors during a specified period. Again, we use ACL software and other CAT tools in order to try to detect anomalies that then make us focus actual compliance testing to see if we can find a true underlying problem or issue. So again, using CATs to validate our audit techniques, it could be with using CATs with test data. We're going to talk about an integrated test facility. It's not a building, it's a capability. We'll talk about that. And parallel simulation. We'll use CATs also to verify data integrity. And that's where we might want to go ahead and make sure that we use a CAT, a special tool, to make sure that when we analyze data, we don't inadvertently corrupt the data. What do you mean? Well, I could say that I'm going to use Microsoft Excel to do some spreadsheet analysis on the data, and therefore that's a computer-assisted audit technique. Yes, it is, but you're not really using a tool that was purpose-built for that. Even though it's getting you the information you want, it's doing the analysis. Here's the problem with Excel. It has the ability to modify the data itself. And what if you inadvertently modify the data during a sort process or things like this? Ooh, I don't like that idea. So consequently, a good computer-assisted audit tool, such as ACL software, it never allows you to actually touch the data directly. What it does is it builds what it calls a view of the data, which is kind of like a second copy, a shadow copy, if you will. And it analyzes the copy of it, and you can sort and you can trend and you can do all kinds of things on that view or shadow copy of the data, but you're never touching the real data file itself. That's actually an important thing because, again, remember, we need to make sure as auditors that we don't inadvertently introduce corruption or errors into the very data that we're testing. This is especially important when you have a live feed, when you're actually performing live real-time tests on systems as they are currently transacting information. And if you inadvertently corrupted that, why, that would be a real problem. So we want to use a type of tool that doesn't have direct access to the data that's working from a copy of the data. We use CATs for data extraction and trending and analysis, potentially identifying potential fraud and things like this. We use CATs to perform our continuous auditing technique. By the way, could ACL software be used by IT in their own continuous monitoring? Sure. Probably not a bad idea. But again, if it's IT doing it, it's called monitoring. If it's audit doing it, it's called continuous auditing. That's the difference. So using CATs to identify data integrity, again, we'll use this generalized audit software perhaps to address search for address field duplications in a database. It's just basically data mining. It's what it is. Continuous auditing techniques such as audit hooks. This is where, for example, if you've ever had your credit card declined because your credit card company felt that it's awful strange that you're making two subsequent purchases so close together at the same shop. They're worried that maybe that was a fraudulent transaction. With an audit hook that is already there to catch, wow, you just transacted the same amount twice within a 30-second period, that automatically flags an exception real time. That's called an audit hook. It's an effective technique for early detection of errors and irregularities. Again, using test data that you contrive is exceptionally good for application logic and processing, testing of that. This is where you create test data to be run through an application, comparing results from the tests to what you expected to see if they actually match up. That's, again, using test data. Integrated testing facility, this is where we actually integrate our testing in with a live system, like what I said before. And they call that integrated test facility, or ITF. The advantage of it is that you don't have any kind of, you don't have to worry that your contrived data won't be representative of the real data because you're using real data. That's the advantage. The disadvantage is now you're working in the live system. And if you actually did inject a test transaction, that transaction may stick in the live system due to something called ACID, atomicity, consistency, integrity, durability. That would be the disadvantage. These advantages and disadvantages are going to come out in these slides, just as I'm showing you here with these exam type examples. Again, performing substantive testing. Again, I've already talked about that. That's going around the control itself to see if there's evidence that the control is working. It's circumstantial evidence, though. And again, low risk of control failure means you have more confidence in your controls. Therefore, you don't need to worry about your substantive testing as much. Therefore, your sampling confidence could be lower so long as your controls are so good. We already talked about that as well. And then finally, in your life cycle phase 9, you'll be delivering an opinion, your conclusions. Again, just general exam-y stuff here, pretty straightforward. Audit documentation, very important consideration. In which phase of your audit? All phases. That's the best answer. Going on, even if someone fixes an issue that you found, you still report it because an audit is a snapshot in time. That is the idea there. Again, if a prior audit result lacks supporting work papers, what should you do? You should retest and document. Again, where do you understand control self-assessment? This is where I have, again, monitoring being performed by IT of their own controls that they operate. And why is that good? Well, it lets us focus on areas of high risk, meaning that if we have performed control self-assessment, well, then I can, as an auditor, say, hey, what do you find that's not working very well? Let me look more deeply into that. It saves audit time. Sounds like a good idea on paper, but I can't imagine IT saying, let me show you where all the hiccups are. So, again, an IS auditor needs to act as a facilitator in control self-assessment because that's the whole point of S, as in self-assessment. This is where we're saying, IT shouldn't rely on the auditors to be performing the very first test of a control. They should have done their own self-assessment prior to the auditor coming. And again, that lets the auditor focus on high-risk areas. Again, now we're just looking at more redundancy of exam-y type reinforcement of what I just got done teaching you. And so that concludes. We're actually 1 minute behind, but we're going to go ahead and answer a couple of questions and take a quick break. And IF, I'm going to get to fix your problem with the practice exams during the break. Well, let's go ahead and just try a couple of practice questions at least, then we'll take a quick break. So the primary reason for conducting IS audits is it to fulfill financial reporting requirements? Is that the primary reason? Is it to determine whether a system safeguards assets? Is it to determine whether a system safeguards assets and maintains data integrity? Or is it mostly just to ensure that the system maintains data integrity? Don't answer in the attendee chat. Actually answer there on screen. And we're going to find out together how we did. All right, we have 36% of attendees that have come through so far. We'll give it another couple of moments. Again, the nice thing is, ladies and gentlemen, don't worry, you're not taking the real exam. You're going to find, though, however, that we actually address this directly within the presentation. So this is not a matter of what you think. This is a matter of what you memorized. What does ISACA feel is the primary reason for conducting an IS audit? By the way, all of these are good answers. It's about knowing which answer ISACA likes, which is what my job is to do. Teach you what ISACA likes to hear on the test. Okay, so moving forward, we have 87.5% of the audience was listening very carefully. They remember that it is to determine whether a system safeguards assets and that it maintains data integrity. That is the correct answer. Good job there. Let's do one more question, then we'll take a break. What is the primary purpose of an audit charter? To describe the authority or responsibilities of the audit department, to describe the authority of the audit department, to describe the responsibilities of the audit department, to establish the agreed auditing framework to be used. Which is the best answer? What do you think? Okay, so far of the people who've answered, yep, 91.7% correctly identified, describing the authority and responsibilities of the audit department. That is correct. Good job there. So let's go ahead and take a break. I'm going to cut us down to 7 minutes to keep us on track. And I will see you in 7 minutes' time. And IF, like I promised, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I troubleshoot your issue and get that resolved for you. See you in a few moments.